revealed the truth about you. You have lived too long believing that you are merely flesh and bone, a name given at birth, a product of circumstances and chance. But I tell you, there is more to you than what the mirror reflects, more than the stories others have spoken over your life. The truth about you is hidden in plain sight. You are not a prisoner of the world you see, but the very creator of it. Every event, every face, every condition is but the shadow of your inner world. And until you awaken to this truth, you will walk as a beggar, though you hold the kingdom within you. Tonight the veil is lifted, and you will discover that what you thought was outside of you has always been born from within. The outer world mirrors the inner self. Look around you for a moment. The faces you see, the places you inhabit, the opportunities or the lack of them, the relationships that either warm your heart or pierce it. Every single detail of this vast, complicated experience you call life is but a reflection of the invisible world within you. The outer world is not something happening to you, it is something happening through you, for it has no life apart from your imagination. Just as a mirror gives you no image unless you first stand before it, the world presents to you nothing unless you first carry it within. This is the great mystery that most people never awaken to, the truth that life does not respond to your complaints, your struggles, or even your desperate efforts. It responds only to your assumptions. What you assume to be true of yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously, sets the mold into which the substance of your days will flow. If you assume lack, life will arrange itself to mirror scarcity back to you. If you assume rejection, you will find endless proof that people push you aside. If you assume unworthiness, the world will constantly echo your low opinion of yourself. But if you dare to assume abundance, if you dare to feel worthy, if you dare to stand in the inner conviction that you are chosen, loved, guided, and destined for greatness, then life must, by law, bend itself into agreement with your inner declaration. This is the unchanging law that governs existence. The outer reflects the inner. You cannot escape it, for it is woven into the very fabric of being. Just as surely as the sun rises and sets, your inner conversations and mental pictures shape the stage upon which your life unfolds. The tragedy is that most of humanity lives unaware of this principle. They look at their world, they see disappointment, they see struggle, they see sickness, and they assume that life has decreed it so. They never stop to ask, what inner dialogue produced this? What state of being gave rise to these shadows in my experience? They fight with shadows, never realizing that the substance is within. To argue with the outer world is as futile as shouting at your reflection in the mirror, hoping it will change while you remain the same. You must transform within if you desire a transformation without. Think of this: when you plant a seed in the ground, you do not blame the soil for producing the harvest of the seed you chose. You cannot sow thorns and expect roses, nor scatter weeds and expect a vineyard. The soil simply yields what you placed into it. In the same way, consciousness, the inner world of thought, feeling, and imagination, yields the harvest of the seeds you plant. Your beliefs are seeds. Your feelings are seeds. Your inner assumptions are seeds, and the world, like faithful soil, must return to you the harvest according to its kind. If you wish to change the outer, you must change the seed you sow within. This is why transformation begins not with efforting to change circumstances, but with assuming the inner state you desire to see reflected in your world. Some will object and say, but I never imagined these troubles. I never wanted these disappointments. How can they be a reflection of me? And yet, if you look closer, you will find that every outer condition bears the fingerprints of an inner state you have entertained. Perhaps you never consciously asked for rejection, but did you dwell in the fear of being unwanted? Perhaps you never consciously invited financial struggle, but did you harbor the deep assumption that money is scarce, or that success is for others and not for you? Perhaps you never consciously asked for loneliness, but did you live in the silent belief that you were not lovable or worthy of companionship? Life is impartial. It does not choose for you. It only reflects back to you what you carry. The world cannot give to you what you deny yourself inwardly. So if you truly desire to see the truth about yourself, do not begin by examining the faces of others or the conditions of your outer life. Begin by looking inward. What are the conversations you hold with yourself in the silence of your mind? What are the pictures you habitually entertain? What mood is dominant in you, faith or fear, love or resentment, hope or despair? For these inner states crystallize into facts. What begins as a whisper of imagination becomes the loud echo of experience. What begins as a fleeting picture in the mind becomes the solid stone of reality. And once you awaken to this, you can no longer play the victim of life, for you see clearly that you are the architect. Consider this: when you dream at night, the world you encounter feels utterly real. The people in your dreams speak to you, the events unfold with intensity, your body responds with emotion. Yet upon waking, you realize that the entire dream was created by your own mind. The figures in the dream were not strangers with wills of their own, but projections of your imagination. Now understand this truth: the waking world is no different. The same imagination that constructs your nightly dreams is the imagination that constructs your daily experiences. The only difference is that the waking dream unfolds with more consistency and persistence, giving the illusion of solidity, but both are born of the same source, you. And just as you can awaken from the night dream and realize it was all within you, so you can awaken from the waking dream and realize the same. This revelation is both liberating and terrifying. It is liberating because you discover that nothing outside of you has power over you. All power is within. It is terrifying because it removes every excuse, every justification for blame, and places the full responsibility on you. Yet in that responsibility lies your freedom. If you created the chains, you can also create the key. If you created the desert, you can also create the garden. If you created the storm, you can also create the calm. Nothing is fixed but that which you continue to assume. The moment you shift within, the world must shift without. Therefore, stop waiting for the world to change before you change. Stop waiting for people to treat you differently before you see yourself differently. Stop waiting for opportunity before you dare to believe you are worthy of it. The world cannot give you what you withhold from yourself. If you desire love, assume that you are already loved. If you desire abundance, assume that you are already abundant. If you desire healing, assume that you are already whole. Live in the inner state as though it were already so, and the outer must mirror it in due time, for the outer is nothing but the reflection of the inner. This is the truth about you. You are not the product of circumstances. Circumstances are the product of you. You are not at the mercy of the world. The world is at the mercy of your imagination. You are not limited by what has been. You are only limited by what you dare to assume now. Your life is your consciousness made visible. Change your consciousness, and you change your life. There is no other way. So I urge you, watch carefully what seeds you sow in the soil of your mind. Do not plant the weeds of fear, resentment, or doubt, and then curse the ground when it yields a harvest of sorrow. Plant instead the seeds of faith, love, abundance, and expectancy. Nourish them daily with imagination, water them with persistence, and watch as your world blossoms with beauty. For the outer world, like a faithful servant, can do nothing but mirror back to you the truth you hold within. Imagination as the creative power, there is a hidden power within you, a power so great that it silently shapes every aspect of your life. Yet most walk through their days utterly blind, mistaking its work for luck, chance, or fate. That power is your imagination. Do not think of imagination as the childish faculty of daydreams or idle fancies, for it is far more than that. Imagination is the womb of creation, the secret workshop of reality, the divine engine through which worlds are formed and destinies are written. Whatever you see in your outer life, your relationships, your finances, your health, your opportunities, has first been conceived and carried in imagination before it ever appeared in the visible realm. Nothing can come into being in your world until it has first taken root in the unseen world of imagination, for imagination is the seed, and reality is its harvest. Every invention, every work of art, every empire, every movement that has changed the course of history began first as an image in the mind of a single individual. The airplane was once only a vision in the mind of two brothers who refused to believe that man was bound to the earth. The light bulb was once only a picture in the imagination of one who dared to challenge darkness. The great works of architecture, the music that moves nations, the stories that stir generations, all were once invisible forms held in imagination until persistence gave them substance. And if this is true of the inventions of the world, how much more is it true of the life you live daily, the conditions you experience, and the identity you wear? You may not realize it, but every time you dwell on an inner picture, every time you replay a scene in your mind, every time you indulge in a conversation with yourself about how things are, or how they will be, you are planting seeds in imagination, and those seeds must, by law, bring forth after their kind. Yet most people treat imagination as a mere escape, not knowing that it is the very cause of what they call reality. They use imagination unconsciously, filling it with fear, doubt, worry, and resentment, then wonder why their world seems filled with evidence of fear, doubt, worry, and resentment. They believe they are victims of circumstances, when in truth they are only victims of their own undisciplined imagination. Life does not respond to what you wish or hope for, it responds to what you inwardly accept as real. The feelings you persist in carrying, the pictures you persist in holding, the inner conversations you persist in repeating, these are the instructions you give to imagination, and imagination, being faithful, will clothe them in fact. You cannot sow images of lack and expect abundance. You cannot sow images of failure and expect success. You cannot sow images of sickness and expect health. Whatever you imagine, whether in faith or in fear, whether in hope or in despair, is creation in motion. You may deceive yourself with words, but imagination never lies, for it reflects your true belief. The world may see your smiles and hear your affirmations, but imagination reveals the state you truly occupy. If you dwell inwardly in defeat, no outward act can rescue you from the harvest that follows. But if you dare to dwell inwardly in victory, even when your senses scream otherwise, you will in due time see your imagination take flesh. Imagination is not limited by time or space. It is not bound by the laws of matter or by the so-called facts of life. Imagination is the eternal present, the place where all possibilities exist at once. When you imagine, you step into a higher law where the impossible becomes possible. To imagine is to claim, to persist in imagination is to possess. If you imagine yourself as healthy, even in the midst of sickness, you are sowing the seed of healing that must eventually break through into the visible world. If you imagine yourself as prosperous, even when your purse is empty, you are planting the seed of abundance that must, by law, bring forth. If you imagine yourself as loved and cherished, even when you sit alone, you are summoning into being the relationships that will reflect your inner conviction. The outer world must obey the inner vision, for imagination is the architect of destiny. But imagination requires discipline. The undisciplined mind drifts like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by every passing wind of circumstance, enslaved to appearances. One moment it imagines success, the next it imagines failure. One moment it entertains hope, the next it sinks into fear. Such divided imagination produces only confusion and delay. To wield imagination as the creative power it is, you must learn to dwell in the state you desire as though it were already so. This is the secret of creation, to imagine the end and persist in that end, regardless of the evidence of the senses. When you imagine, do not simply see it as though it were apart from you. Enter into it, feel it real, dwell in it until it possesses you. Let the picture of your fulfilled desire saturate your being until you no longer strive for it, but rest in the conviction that it is yours. For imagination is not about pretending, it is about creating. Pretending is weak play, creation is divine law. And when you persist in the imaginal act, when you hold it with feeling and conviction, the world has no choice but to mirror it back to you. Consider this truth: imagination is God in action within you. The creative power that formed the stars, the seas, and the earth is not far removed from you. It is your own imagination. This is why you are told that you are made in the image of the Creator, not in form, but in function. You create as the Creator creates, by imagining, and as long as you continue to imagine, you continue to create. Whether you create beauty or sorrow, abundance or lack, depends on the seeds you sow in imagination. You cannot avoid creating, for to be conscious is to imagine, and to imagine is to give life. Your only choice is whether you will imagine deliberately or allow imagination to be directed by fear, by others, by the past, or by the world. The masses live unconsciously, allowing their imagination to be hijacked by news, by gossip, by circumstances, by memories of failure, and then they suffer the harvest. But you who are awakened to the truth can no longer afford such carelessness. You must become the master of your imagination, choosing deliberately what states you occupy, what pictures you hold, and what feelings you cultivate, for in the end these will determine the quality of your life. So ask yourself daily, what am I imagining right now? What inner picture am I holding as true? What feeling am I allowing to dominate me? For these are the silent architects of your future. If you are dissatisfied with your present world, trace it back to the imagination that birthed it. Then dare to revise it. Yes, revision is the great gift of imagination. You need not be bound by the past, for the past itself is nothing but an imaginal act crystallized. You can revisit the past in imagination, rewrite the scene, change the outcome, and hold it as real, and your outer world must rearrange itself to reflect the revision. This is how powerful imagination is. It not only creates the future, it redeems the past. It does not matter what you have experienced up until now. The moment you dare to imagine differently and persist in it, the chains of yesterday break, and the doors of tomorrow swing open. Therefore, live deliberately in imagination. Do not wait for evidence before you believe. Evidence will always lag behind imagination. Believe now, assume now, imagine now. Do not postpone your joy, your success, your love, or your peace until the world shows it to you. Show it to yourself in imagination. Dwell in it until it feels natural, and the world must follow. For imagination is not a weak substitute for reality. It is reality in its first and purest form. Everything else is but its echo. To live in imagination is to live as a creator. To neglect imagination is to live as a shadow. The choice is yours. Will you live as a creator, or will you drift as a victim of appearances? Will you seize the power of imagination, or will you allow it to run wild, creating for you a world you despise? The truth is that you are already using imagination every moment. The only question is whether you use it consciously or unconsciously. So I say to you now, awaken to your creative power. Dare to imagine boldly. Dare to assume the best. Dare to feel the fulfillment of your desires here and now. Let your imagination be the throne from which you rule your world. For the world is but imagination pushed out, and imagination is your truest self at work. When you realize this, you will cease to beg, cease to complain, cease to fear, for you will know that you hold within you the power that shapes nations, heals bodies, restores relationships, multiplies abundance, and lifts the soul. And this power is not far from you. It is not reserved for the few. It is your own imagination. Use it well, and you will transform your world. Identity beyond the physical self. You have been told from the moment of your birth that you are a name, a body, a nationality, a gender, a role to play in society. But the truth about you is infinitely greater than these fleeting garments. You are not the body that ages and decays, nor the mind that worries and remembers, nor the personality shaped by years of conditioning. These are masks, temporary costumes worn for a time in the great drama of life. They are necessary for the play, but they are not the actor. The real you is eternal, changeless, limitless, clothed in imagination, expressing through consciousness. To identify yourself solely with the body is to reduce yourself to dust, bound by time and circumstance. To identify yourself solely with the name given to you is to imprison yourself in the expectations and judgments of others. But to awaken to your true identity is to realize that you are spirit, awareness itself, the divine dreamer who shapes and reshapes reality through the inner act of assumption. Your body is but the instrument, your mind the stage, but you, your true self, are the invisible power that gives them life, and until you recognize this, you will remain chained to appearances, deceived by the illusion that you are weak, limited, and at the mercy of forces outside of you. Think for a moment of how often people say, "This is just who I am," and then proceed to describe their limitations, their flaws, their failures, their inherited tendencies, as though these were eternal truth. They say, "I am poor, I am sick, I am unlucky, I am unwanted," not knowing that every time they speak those words they are affirming an identity they do not have to accept. The I am within you is sacred, for whatever you attach to it, you clothe yourself in. If you say, "I am tired, I am broken, I am hopeless," you are using your creative power to forge chains around yourself. But if you dare to say, "I am strong, I am whole, I am abundant, I am loved," even when appearances deny it, you are aligning yourself with the truth of your being, and the world must eventually reflect that truth. The outer identity society gives you will always change, but the I am, at the core of you, remains forever. You are not the passing clouds of experience. You are the sky that holds them. You are not the waves of circumstance. You are the ocean beneath. You are not the shadow. You are the light that casts it. The body is a marvelous servant, but a terrible master. When you identify yourself with the body alone, you become subject to its frailties, its pains, its mortality. You begin to live as though death is the end, as though aging robs you of worth, as though illness defines you. But when you know that you are spirit clothed in imagination, you see the body as a temporary vehicle, useful for expressing the inner life, but not the essence of who you are. You realize that your true identity cannot be touched by disease, cannot be diminished by time, cannot be destroyed by death. The body returns to dust, but the real you remains, and when you know this, you begin to treat life differently. You no longer fear the changes of the body, for you know they do not touch you. You no longer define yourself by outward labels, for you know they cannot contain you. You no longer shrink at the world's rejection, for you know that the world is only a mirror, not the source of your identity. Your true identity is discovered not by looking outward but inward. Ask yourself, who am I when all labels are stripped away? Who am I when I no longer cling to roles, possessions, or appearances? The answer that arises is silence, a pure awareness that simply is. That awareness is the real you, it is the I am, before you attach anything to it. It is the eternal witness, the dreamer behind the dream. From this center flows imagination, and through imagination flows creation. This is why the outer world bends to your assumptions, because your identity as spirit grants you creative authority. The world treats you as you treat yourself inwardly, for it has no power to define you apart from what you accept as true. You are always free to cast off an old identity and assume a new one. You are not bound to the roles others expect you to play. You are not fixed in the story of your past. You can, in this very moment, say, "I am different now, I am new, I am what I choose to be." And if you persist in that inner conviction, your outer world will rearrange itself to honor your new identity. Consider how often people imprison themselves in memories. They replay their failures, their wounds, their betrayals, and say, "This is who I am." But memory is not identity. It is only a record of imaginal acts once accepted. You are not bound by memory, for imagination can rewrite the past as easily as it shapes the future. You can revise the scene, change the outcome, and hold the new memory as real, and in doing so, you free yourself from the chains of yesterday. You are not your mistakes. You are not your scars. You are not your history. You are the creator who can redeem history, who can transform scars into strength, who can lift mistakes into wisdom. To identify with failure is to deny your true self. To identify with limitation is to forget the infinite power within you. But to identify with spirit is to stand in the freedom of one who knows no chains. This is the truth about you. You are not a creature struggling in a hostile universe. You are the universe in miniature, clothed in consciousness, capable of shaping worlds through the power of assumption. You are not the shadow of fate. You are the author of fate. You are not the effect of causes outside of you. You are the cause of the causes. The body may stumble, the mind may forget, the world may oppose, but the real you remains untouchable, eternal, creative, and free. And once you awaken to this, you cease to live as a beggar hoping for crumbs, and you begin to live as a king who commands by imagination. So stop saying, "This is just who I am," when what you mean is, "This is who I have accepted myself to be." Stop chaining yourself to roles that no longer serve you. Stop bowing to the opinions of others as though they were the voice of truth. No one has the authority to name you but you. No one has the right to define you but the self within. Rise above the labels, the histories, the appearances, and stand in the eternal truth. You are spirit clothed in imagination, infinite in potential, divine in essence. This is your true identity, and when you know it, nothing in the outer world can enslave you. The law of assumption, the great secret of life, the key that unlocks every door of possibility, is hidden in this one principle. You become what you assume yourself to be, and the world reflects not what you wish for, not what you plead for, not what you toil for, but what you boldly and persistently assume as true. The law of assumption is simple, yet its implications are so profound that once you grasp it, you will never again see life the same way. Everything in your world right now, your relationships, your health, your finances, your opportunities, has sprung from the assumptions you have carried within, whether you were conscious of them or not. Life is not arbitrary, nor is it governed by blind chance. It is governed by law, and this law decrees that the outer must conform to the inner state. If you assume yourself unworthy, you will walk through doors that close in your face. If you assume yourself unlucky, life will arrange itself to mirror that belief with disappointment. If you assume yourself rejected, you will find endless proof of rejection. But if you dare to assume greatness, abundance, love, healing, joy, if you dare to step into that state and live from it as though it were already so, then the outer must, by law, align itself with your inner conviction. This is the law of assumption, and it is no respecter of persons. It works for the saint and the sinner alike, for the rich and the poor, for the educated and the uneducated. It does not ask whether your assumption is good or bad, desirable or undesirable. It only knows to mirror back to you what you hold within. Many live as slaves to appearances, believing only what their senses report, never daring to imagine beyond what is visible. They say, "I will believe I am healed when the doctor confirms it. I will believe I am prosperous when the bank account is full. I will believe I am loved when someone shows me affection." And in doing so, they chain themselves to the world as it is, never allowing it to change. But the awakened one knows that appearances are nothing more than shadows of assumptions, that the senses are always reporting the harvest of a past state, not the seed of a new one. To wait for evidence before assuming is to live as a prisoner of yesterday. To assume boldly in the absence of evidence is to live as a creator of tomorrow. The law is impartial. Assume lack and you will see lack. Assume abundance and you will see abundance. The assumption precedes the fact, not the other way around. Think of the actor who steps onto the stage. He assumes the role so completely that the audience believes he is the character. Though he knows he is not the king, not the beggar, not the lover, yet in the moment of performance he enters into the assumption so deeply that the world of the play bends to his identity. You, too, are the actor on the stage of life, and the roles you assume inwardly will be the roles you are compelled to play outwardly. If you assume weakness, you will live the script of weakness. If you assume strength, you will live the script of strength. The role may change, the scenes may vary, but the assumption is always the author. And just as the actor, when he lays aside one role, can take up another, so you, when you lay aside an old assumption, can clothe yourself in a new one. Nothing binds you to the old role but your refusal to step out of it. But here lies the challenge. The senses often contradict the assumption. You may assume abundance while the bills pile up. You may assume health while pain lingers. You may assume love while loneliness surrounds you. And in those moments the temptation is great to abandon the assumption and return to the old state. Yet the law demands persistence. To assume once is not enough. You must dwell in the state until it feels natural, until it possesses you. Just as a seed does not bear fruit the instant it is planted, so your assumption does not instantly harden into fact. It requires faith, patience, and repetition. The seed must be watered, the soil must be tended, and in time the harvest appears. If you abandon the assumption before it matures, you forfeit the harvest, but if you persist regardless of appearances, you will see the outer world bow to the inner law. Understand this, assumption is not pretending. Pretending is weak and easily broken, a mask you wear for a moment before returning to the old self. Assumption is conviction. It is the conscious choice to inhabit a state as though it were already true, regardless of whether the senses agree. To assume abundance is not to pretend you are wealthy while feeling poor. It is to inwardly shift your sense of self until wealth feels natural, until poverty feels foreign. To assume health is not to pretend you are strong while feeling weak. It is to inwardly embody the vitality of wholeness until sickness loses its grip on your awareness. To assume love is not to pretend someone cares for you while feeling unwanted. It is to inwardly dwell in the joy of being cherished until rejection has no power. The law responds not to pretense but to belief. You cannot trick it with words. You can only move it with conviction. The words you speak matter only because they reveal the assumption behind them. Many recite affirmations endlessly, yet nothing changes because their words are empty of conviction. They say, I am rich, I am healthy, I am loved, but in their secret imagination they continue to dwell in poverty, sickness, and loneliness. The law responds to the inner assumption, not the outer repetition. But when words are spoken from the depth of conviction, when the assumption has already taken root, then every word becomes creative, every declaration becomes law. This is why you must watch carefully the conversations you have with yourself in the silence of your mind. Your inner speech is the measure of your assumption. If you argue with yourself, doubting, fearing, complaining, then know that this is the assumption you are planting, and the world will faithfully echo it back. But if your inner speech aligns with the state you desire, if you inwardly rehearse joy, gratitude, victory, and fulfillment, then know that this assumption is setting the stage for your outer world to transform. You may ask, how long must I assume before I see results? The answer is always the same, until it feels natural. The moment the assumption feels real, the moment you no longer strive to believe but rest in the conviction that it is so, the outer must rearrange itself to reflect that state. Sometimes the change is swift, sometimes gradual, but the law is sure. The harvest always matches the seed. The outer always mirrors the inner. And if the harvest seems delayed, do not despair. It is only gestating, waiting for the perfect moment to appear. Trust the process and persist in the assumption. So here is the truth about you. You are not bound by what has been, nor limited by what appears to be. You are free in every moment to assume anew. If the role you have played no longer serves you, lay it aside and assume another. If the story you have told no longer lifts you, rewrite it with a new assumption. Nothing in your past can bind you if you refuse to carry its assumption into the present. You are always free to begin again, to assume differently, to create anew. And the moment you do, the world begins to shift. Therefore, stop waiting for evidence before you believe. Stop bowing to appearances as though they were masters. Stop rehearsing the assumptions of failure, lack, and rejection. Choose now what you will assume. Choose abundance, choose health, choose love, choose strength, choose wisdom. Assume boldly, persistently, with conviction, and the law will not fail you. For the law of assumption is the very heartbeat of creation, the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unseen and the seen. When you master this law, you master life. And the truth about you is this: you already hold the power, for you are the one who assumes, and the world is nothing but your assumption made visible. Awakening to your divine nature, there comes a moment in the life of every seeker when the old identity, the small self bound by fear and limitation, can no longer satisfy, and something deep within whispers that there must be more, that life cannot merely be a cycle of birth, struggle, and death. That whisper is the call to awaken, to rise from the sleep of ignorance and remember the truth. You are not a passive spectator in a hostile universe, nor a victim of forces outside your control. You are one with the very source of creation itself. Awakening to your divine nature is the greatest revelation, for it transforms not only how you see yourself, but how you see the entire world. You realize that the power you once begged, pleaded, and prayed to, as though it were distant, has been within you all along, clothed in your own consciousness. You realize that every limitation you ever accepted was self-imposed, every chain you ever wore was fashioned by your own belief, and every prison you ever sat in had its key hidden in your imagination. To awaken is to know that you are the dreamer of the dream, that you and the creative source are not two but one, that the words you speak in the silence of your mind are the very words that shape reality. The outer world ceases to be a tyrant and becomes instead a servant, reflecting back the state you occupy. No longer do you wait for the world to grant you permission to live fully. You live fully now, knowing that life bends to your inner command. Awakening is not about acquiring new powers, but about remembering what has always been yours. As long as you identify with the small self, the body, the name, the history, you live as though you are separate from the source. You cry out to heaven for answers. You plead for rescue. You search endlessly for signs, not knowing that the very thing you seek is your own being. Awakening strips away the illusion of separation and reveals that the I am. Within you is the divine itself, forever present, forever creative, forever free. When you say I am and attach to it any quality, love, strength, abundance, wisdom, you are not speaking as a beggar hoping for gifts, but as the Creator declaring what is. This is the power of awakening, to stop living as though life is happening to you, and to begin living as though life is happening through you, for that is the truth. But awakening is often uncomfortable, for it requires the death of the old self. The ego resists, for it thrives on fear and limitation. It clings to stories of the past, to roles, to labels, to the familiar suffering that has defined its existence. To awaken is to let go of those stories and step into the unknown, to trust the inner whisper that says you are more. And the ego trembles, for it knows that once you awaken, it can no longer rule you. This is why awakening often feels like a breaking, a shattering of the old identity. You may find yourself stripped of relationships, jobs, or circumstances that once seemed stable. You may feel alone, disoriented, as though the ground beneath you has vanished, but this is not destruction, it is rebirth. The shell must crack for the seed to grow, the night must end for the dawn to rise. The discomfort is only the shedding of the false self, making room for the truth of your divine nature to shine through. When you awaken, you see that every person in your life is a mirror of yourself, every encounter an opportunity to recognize the states you carry. No longer do you blame others for your suffering, for you understand that they are but actors playing the roles your imagination has assigned. If you meet rejection, you know it is because you have assumed rejection within. If you meet kindness, you know it is because you have assumed kindness within. Life ceases to be random and becomes instead a perfectly ordered reflection of your inner world. This realization can be humbling, for it removes every excuse, every justification, every illusion of victimhood. Yet it is also the most empowering truth, for it means you are never powerless, never without choice, never truly at the mercy of the world. You are the author, and awakening is the recognition of your pen. The awakened life is not lived in struggle but in surrender, not surrender to circumstances, but surrender to the truth of your divine nature. You cease striving to make things happen through force, and instead rest in the knowing that all things flow from within. You assume the state you desire, dwell in it with conviction, and trust the law to bring it forth. You no longer chase, for you know that what you are within must appear without. You no longer fear loss, for you know that nothing real can be taken from you, and nothing essential can be withheld. You no longer cling to appearances, for you know they are shadows destined to change. You live in faith, not as hope for a distant future, but as certainty of a present reality. Faith is no longer a vague belief. It is the awareness that imagination creates, that assumption hardens into fact, that the divine nature within you is the source of all, Awakening also transforms how you see others. Where once you saw enemies, you now see reflections of states you have entertained. Where once you saw strangers, you now see yourself clothed in different forms. Where once you judged, you now understand. You realize that the same divine nature that breathes in you breathes in all. Though hidden under masks of fear, ignorance, or malice, it is still the same light, waiting to be recognized. And as you recognize it in yourself, you begin to call it forth in others. This is the true meaning of love, not sentimentality, but recognition of oneness. To awaken to your divine nature is to awaken to the divine in all, and yet awakening is not the end but the beginning. It is not a final destination, but a continual unfolding, a daily choice to live from the higher truth. The world will tempt you to forget, to sink back into the old self, to bow once more to appearances. But every moment is an opportunity to remember. Every moment is a chance to declare, I am, and to choose what you attach to those sacred words. Will you choose fear, or will you choose faith? Will you choose lack, or will you choose abundance? Will you choose to remain asleep, or will you choose to stay awake? The choice is always yours, and the power is always within you. This is the truth about you. You are not a fragment in a vast, indifferent cosmos. You are the cosmos in miniature, a spark of the infinite flame, clothed in consciousness, shaping reality by assumption. You are not separate from the divine. You are the divine expressing itself as you. You are not here to suffer. You are here to create, to express, to awaken, to remember. And when you truly know this, when the veil lifts and you see clearly, fear dissolves, limitation shatters, and you walk through life with a quiet power that nothing can shake, you no longer strive to become. You rest in the awareness that you already are. You no longer seek outside what has always been inside. You no longer beg the world for scraps, for you know the banquet is within you. Awakening is not reserved for the few, the holy, or the chosen. It is your destiny, your birthright, the inevitable unfolding of consciousness. You need not wait for death to find it, nor for some distant heaven to reveal it. Heaven is within you now, and to awaken is to see it, to live from it, to bring it forth into expression. The kingdom you seek is not in the sky, not in temples, not in rituals. It is in your imagination, in your awareness, in the I am that whispers through every breath. And once you know this, you can never be the same. For you have awakened to your divine nature, and nothing can put you back to sleep.